Programmes for Sunday evening on BBC One. At 7:15, Peter the Great finds his plan for expansion thwarted by the Church.
It is a trust to be used only for Russia's rainy day.
I do not consider this a rainy day.
Taxing the Church will provoke one.
Whose side are you on?
Yours. Ask him to tell you truthfully if he wants you to tax the Church.
If you do, it will bring you down.
More gastronomic delights in bread at 8:45.
Oh, and tell Grandad the eggs are not free range, but the hens that laid them run around in a shed.
At 9:15, a special holiday edition of That's Life with some of the best loved moments of the recent series. And this is the full lineup for Sunday evening on BBC One.
But now we continue the afternoon here on One with a display of aeronautical prowess in Holiday Air 87.
Hello and welcome to Holiday Air 87. The International Air Tattoo here at RAF Fairford in Gloucestershire is one of the biggest events of its kind in the world and a must for aviation enthusiasts who've been arriving here since the early hours, covered in cameras and zoom lenses. Around 250,000 visitors are expected and there's no shortage of entertainment. There's over 400 aircraft from 21 different countries and the finest international pilots showing off their aerobatic skills, including a first-time visit from the Royal Moroccan Air Force. My colleague and the man with all the technical knowledge at his fingertips is Concorde Captain John Hutchinson.
Thank you, Simon. There's a huge collection of veteran jet fighters assembled here, and of course, no show would be complete without the presence of the RAF aerobatic team, the Red Arrows, celebrating their 22nd year.
And performing her own acrobatics is a very brave lady who gets her kicks like this.
And these parachutists do it for a living.
This will be one of the last times we see one of my favourites, the Lightning, in action.
There are more formation aerobatic teams assembled here than I've ever seen before, including Italy's crack team, the Frecce Tricolori.
And the first of our aerobatic display teams, at.The Portugal, or Wings of Portugal, are making their debut on British television. They were formed in 1977, and for the last 10 years they've represented the Portuguese Air Force at international air shows.
The T-37, the T of course stands for trainer, was the first American basic jet trainer and goes back to the mid-1950s. Built by Cessna, better known perhaps for their range of business and pleasure aircraft, it marked a new departure for the US Air Force by introducing side-by-side seating for instructor and student, as in the Royal Air Force's Jet Provost. These aircraft are powered by two Continental J69 engines, giving 1,025 pounds thrust each, and they're capable of carrying a variety of weaponry under the wings. More than 1,300 of them were sold to the US Air Force, as well as to 7 other air forces throughout the world.
Their leader is Major Carlos Leal. What sort of speed will these aircraft be doing, John?
Well, Simon, obviously it varies. At the high-speed end of their manoeuvres, I would guess up to around 350 miles an hour, reducing to something like 200 miles an hour as they go over the tops of their loops.
Good to see them here promoting the Portuguese Air Force.
The Royal Air Force, not to be outdone in any way, are doing their version of formation flying with this Balbo of 15 C-130 Hercules aircraft. It really is a very unusual sight to see so many large transport aircraft flying so close together. The ubiquitous Hercubird is not only a military aircraft, the stretched civil version flies with carriers in 22 countries.
Scar Indigo, clear takeoff. East surface wind 2605 knots.
Now here's someone who obviously means business, the Vought F8 Crusader. It features an array of high-lift devices, including the novel idea of a variable incidence wing which pivots through some 7 degrees. This allows the wing of this carrier-borne aircraft to generate more lift while maintaining a near horizontal attitude, giving the pilot a clear view of the deck as he comes into land, as well as giving him slower approach speeds more suitable for the smaller French carriers. She first entered service 30 years ago with the US Navy, becoming the standard carrier-borne fighter prior to the introduction of the Phantom. Well over 1,200 aircraft were built, and she still remains in service with the French Navy and in the Philippines. An excellent view of her sawtooth leading edge. She's powered by a Pratt & Whitney J57 turbojet with afterburner, giving 18,000 pounds of thrust and a supersonic capability with speeds of up to 1,150 miles per hour and a ceiling of 38,000 feet. There's the hook for picking up the arrestor gear and the sturdy undercarriage built to take the impact of a deck landing. Just to prove how fast the Crusader can fly, watch this high-speed run and listen to the sound of tortured air as pilot Philippe Degletergen nudges the sound barrier.
Now making a more leisurely approach is the Army Air Corps with a wide range of aircraft, old and new. The Skeeter was the first helicopter to serve in the Corps, and this one was built in 1958. It's maintained as part of the AAC's historic aircraft flight. Its engine is the good old de Havilland Gypsy Major, and it's flown by Lieutenant Colonel Mike Warren, who's the chief flying instructor at Middle Wallop, which is a name I say with great relish. Also based at Middle Wallop is the Auster at the front here, which served for nearly 30 years as an artillery observation platform. It's particularly good at slow-speed manoeuvres and ideal for landing in confined spaces. This is one of only 2 that remain in flying condition with the Army. And putting the Gazelle through its paces is Staff Sergeant Bob Hall. He's climbing almost vertically here. Ugh, hope he didn't have a big lunch. An Anglo-French production, of course, the Gazelle is made jointly by Westland and Aerospatiale. It's very quick off the mark and can reach speeds of up to 168 miles an hour. In fact, it holds 3 world speed records for light helicopters. It does a variety of jobs for the Army, including reconnaissance, fire control and casualty evacuation. You can see here how very agile it is as it goes through these 360-degree turns. You can also see here the distinctive fenestron tail, which encloses the tail rotor. It looks a bit like one of those extractor fans. John, you used to fly helicopters. Did you ever try any of these manoeuvres?
No, I didn't, Simon. I think if I did anything like this, I'd just close my eyes.
I hope you don't do anything like that in Concorde.
The first appearance in Europe being made by the Chilean Air Force aerobatic team, the Halcones, or Falcons. A 4-ship team plus a solo, they travel with their display commentator. They fly with flair. Watch this inverted spin by the solo and try to count the turns.
extraordinary. Well, I counted 8.
Shades of Bill Bedford spinning the Hunter at Farnborough, and he's recovered at all of 200 feet. Led this year by Captain Albornoz, they've been flying since 1980 and have made more than 300 displays in that time. The aircraft is the Pitt Special, with the Singleton in an uprated version with a 260 horsepower Lycoming engine. The 4-ship breaks into 2 pairs as they perform synchronized stall turns. A neat flick roll by one of the opposition pair, followed by a very steady mirror formation. The inverted aircraft concentrates on making a level fly past, while the other aircraft formates on him. The solo demonstrating a very crisp 4-point roll. The rest of the team, the Halcones, end their most imaginative display with a rollback break.
This imposing-looking aircraft, the Lockheed C-141 Starlifter, is unusual in having an all-female crew, led by Captain Terry Sullivan.
Spoilers. Closing arm co-pilot, closing arm pilot. IFF. Set. Continuous ignition. On angle of attack de-ice.
As elegant as its crew in flight, despite its vast bulk, this strategic transporter from the United States Air Force is used for shifting large numbers of troops and supplies. And we should say congratulations to all the girls from the flight deck to the loadmaster, or loadmistress in this case, for winning the Spirit of the Show award.
38-year-old Vic Norman's display in the highly manoeuvrable Czech-built Zlin 50. Let's listen to Vic talking to us on the radio from the cockpit as he flies his aerobatics.
Coming up now for a stall turn, checking the speed about 300 kilometers an hour, hitting the vertical, checking right and left, letting the speed wash right off. 0 speed now, kicking hard over on the rudder. Picking up the target point on the ground and a full vertical roll going down. Pulling out with a load of speed and height in hand, and a fast roll now. And pulling up for a reverse Cuban with 3 rolls and a hesitation at the top. And hesitate there, and pulling down now as I come to my double avalanche, getting position, checking the crowd. I hope you can all hear me. Pulling up now for my double avalanche. As the horizon comes round now, full positive flick. Here we go. Count 1, 2, catching it on rudder and stick. Letting the speed build up now as we pull up now for a reverse Cuban with positive flicks. Flicking now. And catching it. And it back to you.
Graham Warner, you're the founder of the British Aerial Museum, which has spent so many years meticulously restoring this Blenheim. What are the plans for the future?
Well, we had a major mishap at Denham, which everyone now knows about, but we've managed to get things together again. We found airframe components in Canada. The Imperial War Museum are going to continue to offer their facilities at Duxford, and the whole of our volunteer team have offered to continue again to rebuild one and put one back in the air where it really does belong.
You've obviously had a great love affair with this airplane. Why the Blenheim in particular?
Well, the Blenheim's a very important aircraft which has been neglected for far too long. It was the mainstay of the RAF in the first 2 years of the war. It was operated by every command, fighter command, bomber command, coastal command, Army Cooperation Command and Training Command, and in every theatre of the war. And it seemed to us that it's an important aircraft that should be brought to the public's attention, and there was no better way of doing that than to put one into the air where they belong so people can see it.
Graham, I must say I didn't realise myself that the Blenheim had such a distinguished record. Very, very good luck with the appeal, and thank you for talking to us.
Yes, we're just sorry that we couldn't have shown it to the people in the air today, because we know that many thousands are disappointed, but we'll put it back again.
I'm sure they will. The Guild of Air Pilots and Air Navigators is helping to run the Blenheim appeal, and this aircraft, the Vulcan, also has its own preservation society, the Vulcan Association. This is the only flying example that remains, and she's operated by the RAF due to huge public demand. And it's easy to see why. She's a beautiful looking aircraft. The Vulcan was the world's first delta-wing heavy bomber, and her 4 powerful Rolls-Royce engines enable her to cruise at 620 miles an hour at a height of 55,000 feet. Squadron leader Neil McDougall DFC and Flying Officer Stu Mitchell opened her bomb doors, although she only dropped bombs in anger once, and her displays today commemorate a highly successful career keeping the peace. She reminds me of one of those prehistoric pterodactyls, John, or a giant moth.
Yes, she does rather, Simon. From one Rolls-Royce Olympus-powered Delta to another, one of the most beautiful shapes in the sky, Concorde. Flying low down the runway, almost sitting on the thrust from those engines, as British Airways Captain Norman Britton, who's just recovered from a broken foot, opens up the throttles and selects the reheats for the overshoot.
Concorde cleared through for your final pass, and after the pass it'll be climb runway heading flight level 90 and the frequency for Bravo is 133.15.
One of the great advantages of a Delta wing is the enormous capacity for carrying fuel. In the case of Concorde, that fuel not only gives her transatlantic range, but is also used to change the position of the centre of gravity for supersonic flight. She remains the only aircraft in the world capable of maintaining Mach 2 without the use of reheat.
And as the Royal Moroccan Air Force appear for the first time at Fairford, I should tell you that theirs is a display with a difference. They begin with the aircraft tied together. See the rope? And their wingtips are a mere 6 feet apart. This Huey helicopter is piloted by Squadron Leader Rob Tierney, who commandeered it in the Falklands. He's flying 3 flags, the RAF Ensign, the American Stars and Stripes, and the flag of the International Air Tattoo. The helicopter now belongs to the RAF Benevolent Fund.
Back come the aerobatic duo from Morocco, the Green March, with the rope still attached, flying Cap 10s and led by Jean-Pierre Attali. They peel away to break the safety link in that rope. Not a heavy-duty nylon line, I'm glad to say. Nice touch, reminiscent of the Hendon Air displays and Sir Alan Cobham's Flying Circus. The Cap 10's an interesting plane. It has side-by-side seating for 2 people. It's fully aerobatic, stressed to +6 and -4.5 G. Made in France, over 180 of them have been delivered to customers in 19 countries. Now a manoeuvre unique to this team. It's taken years of practice and it's earned them a mention in the Guinness Book of Records. A loop performed quite beautifully while maintaining mirror formation. The looking glass loop. The inside aeroplane flown by Otelli is actually inverted and therefore pushing his way through this manoeuvre. Very uncomfortable and enough to make your eyes pop. Nice to see them here, the Green March from Morocco.
You might think this is a lunar module landing. In fact, it's the Rolls-Royce Flying Bedstead, which was developed to see if an aircraft could provide and sustain lift without aerodynamic help.
A strange-looking beast, the short SC-1. It had 5 Rolls-Royce 108 engines, 4 mounted for vertical and 1 for horizontal flight. An experimental machine to investigate control problems during the transition from the hover to wing-borne flight she first flew in 1957. Coincidentally, the Harrier concept was proposed in that same year and first flew in a tethered hover in 1960. It's come a long way since then, as Flight Lieutenant Ray Coates in this Harrier T4 two-seat trainer from the Operational Conversion Unit at RAF Wittering now demonstrates as he creeps in low over the trees to land in a small clearing. It's worth remembering that it's probably going to be quite difficult for the pilot to locate such a clearing in real conditions. It's hardly like landing at Heathrow. In her natural habitat, somewhere just behind the front line, Ray Coates prepares for a vertical takeoff. Ray's left hand moving forward to change the nozzle angle as he transitions to forward flight. Now in the single-seat GR3 and at the other end of the speed scale, Ray shows she can shift along quite smartly. Ray Coates is in his 3rd year of displaying the Harrier, and he's the flight commander of the Basic Handling Squadron, with 1,200 hours on type. A pilot's eye view out of the cockpit with the green symbology of the head-up display clearly visible as Ray lines up on the display line. I was very privileged to fly with Ray last year when he took me through his routine. It was an experience I shall never forget. It's quite mind-boggling to defy all the normal aerodynamic laws. As he sedately approaches the President's tent to pay his respects, some more remarkable views out of the cockpit. Another demonstration of this aircraft's great versatility, as Ray Coates comes in for an RVL, short for a rolling vertical landing and takeoff. And just watch this climb away with virtually no forward speed as he powers it up into an 85-degree climb.
And just to prove this is an all-weather aircraft, see what happened during rehearsal after a cloudburst.
Now here's someone with a real identity crisis and thinks he's a Harrier. The Boeing Chinook with its distinctive twin rotors, each of 60-foot diameter. I think he's actually trying to outdo the Harrier, taking off backwards. This aircraft comes from No. 7 Squadron based at RAF Odium and flown by Flight Lieutenant Malcolm Reeves. It's fitted with an automatic flight control system and auto-stabilization to make for ease of handling. There are radar warning receivers in the nose and in the trailing edge of the rear pylon to provide all-round cover. She can carry up to 44 passengers in the cabin or 28,500 pounds slung underneath. A bag full of 25 minis.
I'm standing in front of one of the latest UK air defence aircraft, the Tornado, with a gentleman who saw action in both World Wars. His name is Lancelot John Bright, and he's known to his colleagues as Shiny. Shiny, I would imagine this is a little bit faster than some of the aircraft you flew in World War I. Can you tell me a little bit about some of those planes?
Not a little bit faster, a terrific amount faster. I joined the Royal Flying Corps in 1915, and I was posted to a squadron, 25 squadron, of FE-2Bs. These aircraft were pusher-type aircraft with 120 horsepower engine, and we used to do line patrols from Ypres to the Somme. It was armed with 2 Lewis machine guns, The drums of ammunition for these machines had been altered to carry 90 rounds of ammunition instead of the normal 48 rounds of ammunition. And this gave us a lot of problems because frequently what was known as the cartridge guide spring, I don't know what it was, but broke. And it made things extremely unpleasant because to maneuver and do technical work on a machine gun whilst you're flying at 60 miles an hour in the cold with fingers frozen is not too pleasant to contemplate. It was so arranged that the pilot sat on the petrol tank, see? And the observer or gunner, which was myself in this case, you either stood up for the 3 hours or you put an empty petrol tin on the floor and sat on that amongst the ammunition sliding around your feet, you see.
So the bombs were rolling around. Obviously they weren't too safety conscious in those days.
Well, that isn't quite right. The bombs weren't quite exactly rolling around. They were on a homemade bomb rack, and occasionally they didn't fall off. So I used to carry a stick and push one off that wouldn't get out of the way. And that's where they say I started the First World War. That was the first bomb dropped in anger.
Now, Shiny, you've survived 2 world wars. Would you mind me asking you your age?
Oh. I'll be 89 next birthday.
You look very well on it. Thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you very much.
What a character. One of the themes of the International Air Tattoo is a celebration of 75 years of UK air defence, commemorating the formation of the Royal Flying Corps in 1912. The oldest aeroplane flying here is the Gloucester Gladiator, powered by the soft-sounding purr of its Bristol Mercury engine. The last biplane fighter to serve in the RAF, it first entered service 50 years ago. This aircraft is owned by the Shuttleworth Trust.
With the distinctive drone of its Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, a Hawker Hurricane takes to the skies, the last of the many. The first squadron aircraft to exceed 300 miles an hour and equipped with 8 machine guns, the Hurricane bore the brunt of the early air battles of the Second World War in France and in the Battle of Britain, where it destroyed more enemy aircraft than all the other defences put together. I think it's got tremendous charisma, but despite all this, it's never somehow had the glamour of its famous partner.
A formation of 3 Supermarine Spitfires of the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight. Both the Rolls-Royce engines and the R.J. Mitchell-designed airframe were descended from the victorious seaplane racers, which won the Schneider Trophy outright. The excellent basic design allowed continuous development over its 10-year production run, during which more than 20,000 aircraft were made, culminating in the Mark 24. This Mark 19 with the D-Day markings is flown by Squadron Leader Paul Day.
This was the tornado of its time, the all-wood Mosquito, a multi-role combat aircraft capable of 400 miles an hour and able to give a very nasty bite. It used the Merlin engines like the Spitfire and the Hurricane, and its role in UK air defence was essentially that of a night fighter equipped with radar. The Mosquito was also used successfully as a pathfinder. Its job was to drop flares on enemy targets before the bombers arrived.
2 different aircraft from the same stable, the de Havilland Vampire and Venom. Both twin-boomed, the Vampire T-11 is the one in front with the wide cockpit for its side-by-side seating. The single-seat Venom behind has tip tanks. The Vampire jet fighter first flew in 1943, and it was the twin-seat night fighter derivative which led to the T-11 trainer. The Venom fighter bomber featured a more powerful engine and more efficient wing, making it about 100 miles an hour faster than the Vampire. Both these aircraft are privately owned and are based at Cranfield.
By the time it's replaced in the early 1990s, the Shackleton will have served in the Air Force for over 40 years defending our shores. It's quite remarkable that she's still flying today, carrying our airborne early warning system. This is one of 6 belonging to No. 8 Squadron at RAF Lossiemouth, where they're affectionately named after magic roundabout characters like Florence and Mr. Rusty. Now, United States Air Force officers love flying the Shackleton. They see it as part of our national heritage, a bit like the Tower of London. One was heard to say recently, if a microchip came within 20 yards of this aircraft, it would run a mile.
Another veteran air defender, and the first British aircraft capable of supersonic level flight, the English Electric Lightning. Powered by two Rolls-Royce Avons, mounted somewhat unusually, one above the other, they produce a total of nearly 33,000 pounds of thrust with those reheats on. The Lightning went into service with number 74 Squadron at RAF Coltishall in 1960 and remains operational to this day, with two squadrons at RAF Binbrook. Flight Lieutenant John Fiennes is with number 5 Squadron, and he's been flying the Lightning for 6 years. They're due to be phased out next year to be replaced by the Tornado, although they will still remain in operation in Saudi Arabia. It's interesting to note John Fiennes' comment. He describes it as a super aeroplane to fly, still excellent in combat by comparison with the Tornado and Jaguar. With a ceiling of more than 60,000 feet and speeds up to 1,500 miles per hour, the Lightning remains a potent weapon in its role of all-weather interceptor. The weaponry can include packs of Firestreak or Red-Top missiles, as well as twin 30mm Aiden cannons in a ventral pack. With her retirement, the chances of seeing her again on television will be diminished. Sad thought.
Yes, it's a shame. And here is its replacement and the very latest UK air defence aircraft, the aggressive-looking Tornado F3. Built by a consortium from Britain, Germany and Italy, the Tornado is the RAF's most modern and sophisticated aircraft. The pilot is Flight Lieutenant Paul Brown, an instructor pilot at RAF Coningsby. Eventually there'll be 7 F3 squadrons based at Lucas and Leeming, as well as Coningsby. The Tornado has a price tag of over £17 million. For your money you get twin inertial navigation systems, fuel-efficient engines giving a 4-hour mission capability and £35,000 thrust with reheat, and by the end of next year, an automatic wing sweep facility. Congratulations to Paul Brown and his navigator, Flight Lieutenant Ian Mallin, for winning the Best Solo Jet Aerobatic Award here at Fairford. John, it's obviously quite an aircraft.
Yes, Simon, it certainly is. And I think the advent of the automatic manoeuvre device system will represent an enormous advantage for the pilot. It means that wing sweep will be programmed for the correct angle depending on speed, and the combination of leading edge and trailing edge flaps will shape that wing to the optimum for the specific manoeuvre. The wings in the fully swept back position for high-speed flight. Another demonstration of great flair, the French Air Force parachute team, Phoenix. I've never seen anything like this before, a descent in mirror. I wonder those chutes don't collapse. Now 2 parachutists locked together in a Y formation. The team have already done a free fall from 12,000 feet as we join them gliding down on their rectangular ram air chutes. A stack of 3 of the team with the bottom member flying the French national flag. Nice touch. There are 15 members in the team, which was started in 1973, and they display throughout the world, although this is the first time we've ever seen them on television. Watch the stack now as they stay together, quite literally until the bottom member has touched down. Very cool judgment. Back to the pair in the Y formation as they break apart for their touchdown, bringing the display by the French Air Force parachute team Phoenix to an end.
A C-130 Hercules, flown by squadron leader Peter Kingsford from RAF Lynham, completes its tactical approach, a very steep descent with a short landing. We're about to watch a tactical demonstration, which is all about speed and efficiency. As soon as the Hercules stops, 2 armoured vehicles will be offloaded as fast as possible and go straight into action. The cargo doors are open, there goes one. There goes the second. And the troops are from the RAF regiment.
Runway 27, Hercules on the runway, backtracking quickly.
Very quickly, the troops have taken over, and the key thing about this manoeuvre is the element of surprise. In hostile countries, the runways are often very makeshift affairs, and as the Hercules turns round for a quick departure, you can see just how manoeuvrable this 50-ton aircraft is.
In these situations, it's important to do as short a takeoff as possible, and the aircraft, much lighter of course without its load, is able to do a very steep climb out to avoid hostile small arms fire. Squadron leader Kingsford and his crew are now banking sharply away to head back to friendly airspace. And into RAF Fairford comes the TriStar bearing the patron of the international air tattoo, His Majesty King Hussein of Jordan.
Your Majesty, do you find the TriStar a rather sedate aircraft compared with some of the others that you've flown in the past?
An extremely sedate aircraft, and very modern, and quite a difference between this aircraft and some of the aircraft I used to fly in the earlier years.
I get the feeling that your personal taste is for something a little more exciting. Perhaps you could tell us some of the aircraft that you have enjoyed flying.
Well, so I started with an Oyster Eaglet and Tiger Moth and Chipmunk, Harvard, and then I flew the Vampire and the Hunter. And I've flown a Dove, Eddie Havilland Dove, for many years. I flew it to the United Kingdom several times in earlier years.
What do you think is so special about this particular tattoo?
I believe so it brings aviators together from throughout the world, but it also gives the public a chance to see what aviation has developed to. And beyond all that, it is the Royal Air Force Benevolent Fund that does such good work, and certainly the Royal Air Tattoos a chance to enable people to enjoy themselves and at the same time contribute towards a very worthy cause.
Now, the Royal Jordanian Falcons were founded in 1976. Have you been encouraged by the amount of progress they've made in 11 years?
Yes, I have, and I think that they are good ambassadors for Jordan throughout the world, and at the same time the boys who fly have been changing all the time, so it has given some of our very young graduate pilots a chance to fly in this team, as well as on occasion Air Force personnel, in addition to normal airline captains. So, but they have done very, very well in that.
Thank you very much, Your Majesty, for this interview. Thank you so much.
The Royal Falcons three-man team fly the Pitt Specials, and they operate as a highly specialised department at Alia, the Royal Jordanian Airline. And they've been regular performers at the last 5 air tattoos. Unlike jet teams, the Falcons have to fly at near maximum power settings, so it's important that each pilot maintains proper position throughout the display, as there's very little extra power left to correct for mistakes in timing. On the other hand, of course, the piston engine teams are able to present a much more compact display than their jet counterparts, because they're flying at much slower speeds.
An excellent display from the Royal Jordanian Falcons, performing with great pride here before their monarch, King Hussein.
Right, from, go.
The RAF Red Arrows, led by Squadron Leader Richard Thomas, AFC. Listen to Richard's RT and his personal commentary live from the cockpit.
And reversing. Smoke off. Go. Power. Need a bit of power there just to get the speed right from the start of the barrel roll. Bit of cloud forming out to the west. Eagle. Go. 4, 5. Go. Smoke off. Go. Letting it out. Looking for the pull-up point for the roll. Smoke off. Go. And rolling. Rolling at 25 degrees of pitch. Here we go, on to our backs, watching the rate of roll. High to the top of the roll, 3,000. Quite a big one. Slowing the rate of roll up just a bit to get the correct exit angle for the next manoeuvre. Tightening. That right. Dead right. Let's go. Straight. Smoke off. Go. 3,000 feet, 280 knots. You can see both sides are in now. Delta. Go. 2, 3. Once again, bank coming off of it. Going to fly it in here slightly. Hurry up. Smoke on. Go. And on. 25 degrees of pitch, 330 knots on the pull-up. Upside down, 2,800 feet. Here at the pull-up point. Holding the bank. Now. Diamond, go. 2, 3. Smoke off, go. Thrust it back a bit. More bank. Tightening. Come right onto the crowd line a little bit more. 9 arrows, go. 8, 9. Big, Vixen, go. Pitch. We'll be in now for the second half. Looking for Denham. I think I've seen it. Running out. Very difficult to tell. There it is. Red fan. Go. Roll. Split. Using up to the clearance. Right up there. 500 foot over the ground. Pressure. The idea now is just to get the timing right for the second part. Turn! I want to be in too early for my next manoeuvre, otherwise it messes up the timing of the synchro. Jump! Get on, go. Hurry up. Let's go through Denham, 25 degrees, and rolling. Over onto our backs. To the upside down, just about opposite Denham, doesn't look too far right. Dropping back. That's just the control. Single full. At the end of the roll. Five. Pressure. Wait for a moment and coming right now. Roll. Go. One step. Go. 4, 5. Central power. Lead rolling under now. Hold on. Rolling now towards the crowd and starting to turn, tighten onto the line now. Go, go! Turn! final manoeuvre. Break. Yes, that's the end of it. What a shame we couldn't get any loops in, but the pride was just a little bit too low.
That was remarkable. Now, looking a bit like something out of a Jaws movie is the awesome Lockheed C-5 Galaxy, the largest aircraft on display here in the Static Park. Almost 250 feet long, it can carry 100 tons from here to New York without stopping. And if you've got £100 million to spare, you could buy one.
And now for something completely different. The things people do for excitement. The rugged Stearman biplane flown by ex-RAF pilot Bob Thompson, and upside down on that wing, Miss Leslie Gale. You might be forgiven for thinking she's taken leave of her senses, but I'm told she's got a degree in chemistry and runs a very successful kissogram agency in Leicester. The Stearman, which could be thought of as an American Tiger Moth, entered service as a basic trainer with the US Army Air Corps in 1935, and so successful was she that over 10,000 examples were built. After the war, many of them were converted for use as crop sprayers, and it remains one of the most widely used vintage aircraft still flying today. Leslie Gale waves farewell, a brave lady.
Not for the faint-hearted. Making a grand entrance is the Royal Netherlands Air Force Formation helicopter team, the Grasshoppers. Led by First Lieutenant Theo ten Haag, they include a female pilot who flies in the number 4 position, First Lieutenant Alexandra Wiesing. They're flying the Aerospatiale Alouette 3 helicopter.
Now,
The Alouette is quite an elderly helicopter. It first flew in 1959. Since then, around 1,450 of them have been sold to 70 different countries, and it's also been built under license in India, Switzerland, and Romania.
The Grasshoppers come into the hover for their next unique manoeuvre, the carousel. Is this tricky, John?
It's very difficult, as any student helicopter pilot will tell you. It's a delicate balance of cross-control between the cyclic and the anti-torque pedals, as they describe an imaginary circle. The Grasshoppers creeping along in caterpillar, very close together.
The Grasshoppers have been awarded the Sir Douglas Bader Trophy for the best overall flying demonstration and the International Display Sword for the best flying demonstration by overseas participants.
This C-130 Hercules belongs to the Swedish Air Force and is flown by 2 pilots who take it in turns to put on their display. The aircraft is with the Air Transport Wing and comes from the Skaraborg district of Sweden. These pilots really do show off what can be done with what is, after all, a very large military transport. Bengt Damberg and Anders Wallström are the display pilots of the Swedish Air Force Hercules. Bengt, that was a most impressive display. What sort of bank angle are you reaching during your wingovers?
Approximately 120 degrees on the top.
That's an awful lot of bank. Anders, what strikes me as being a very unusual feature of your display is that you shut the outboard engines down. Are there any problems associated with that?
Well, sir, there's no problems, and normally we are doing that in Sweden. And that's just because we like to show the people how the aircraft is to handle with only 2 engines, and it works fine. And there is no problem to restart it.
Gentlemen, thank you.
And the Spanish Akea, or Eagles, begin their first ever public display outside Spain. The team was only formed 2 years ago, and it's made up of instructor pilots from the Spanish Air Force Academy. The 6 pilots are all part-time members of the team, and their leader today is Major Francisco Carrizosa.
Now.
The car's a C-101 Aviajet used by the team is exactly the same as the basic trainer flown by the Spanish Air Force Academy, with no special modifications. Unlike most of the other aerobatic teams, the pilots have just 1 hour's training a week.
Right, 6. And override. Now. Continuing up and over.
The Spanish Akea.
I'd describe this as awesome. The Boeing B-52 Stratofortress starting its takeoff run. With 8 Pratt & Whitney engines, this bomber generates enormous power as 200 tons of metal accelerate down the runway. It's got outrigger wheels on the wingtips to stabilize it for takeoff and landing. These aircraft have been operational for 30 years and remain the backbone of Strategic Air Command. The undercarriage retraction sequence looks a bit of a shambles. I'm sure it's quite a handful to land in a crosswind, and for that reason, it can be offset to compensate for any crosswind effect. With its 5-man crew, the aircraft is from 596 Squadron based at Barksdale Air Force Base, Louisiana.
Another American aircraft rarely seen in Britain is the Lockheed TR-1. It's an ultra-high-altitude reconnaissance platform, and its normal environment is cruising at 90,000 feet, the edge of space. So its pilot has astronaut clothing and life support systems. Since it first flew in 1957, it's performed numerous assignments, from testing equipment for satellites to mapping the Earth.
Emphasizing the international flavor of the Air-2, a Norwegian pilot at a British airfield flying an American aircraft, the General Dynamics F-16, the Fighting Falcon. Flown by 26-year-old First Lieutenant Jens Lippestad from 332 Squadron, Royal Norwegian Air Force, based near Oslo.
He's flying at a very high nose-up attitude here.
He's demonstrating the excellent slow-speed handling And of course, to generate the necessary lift, the wing has to be at a high angle relative to the airfield. Look at the all-moving tail and an excellent view of the air brakes, retracting now as he accelerates away. He's using his side stick control with its fly-by-wire signalling as he pulls up sharply into a climb. That creates a lot of G, and to help him tolerate that, the pilot sits in a reclined position. The aircraft is cleared to 9G, that's 9 times the force of gravity.
What are those two streaks of vapour coming from the aircraft?
Well, he's racking it round in a really tight turn, which creates an area of very low pressure over the wing. And those streamers, focused at the wing root, are caused by the water vapour in the atmosphere condensing into cloud. A pilot's dream of fighting Falcon.
The Navy Lynx helicopter, piloted by Lieutenant Commander Tony Eagles, senior pilot of 702 Squadron at Portland. And the observer is Lieutenant Mike Chirnside, who served on HMS Broadsword in the Falklands. Built under an Anglo-French agreement like the Puma and the Gazelle, the Westland Lynx is a twin-engined, all-weather, lightweight helicopter, and it's used by NATO. It's carrying 2 Sea Skewer missiles. It can carry 4, and the nose is modified to carry a Ferranti Sea Spray search and tracking radar. It's mainly used in an anti-submarine and anti-surface vessel role, and it's ideal for operating from small ships. A very impressive helicopter.
The last of our formation teams, and one that's renowned throughout the world for the high quality of its displays. The Italian Air Force, represented by Frecce Tricolori. Led by Colonel Mario Naldini, there are 10 aircraft in the team, and they fly the Air Macchi MB339, a 2-seat jet trainer not dissimilar to the Hawk. Coming in now in Diamond 9 with a tail, a bit like a kite, the tail being the 10th aircraft, as they pull up for a half loop, bursting at the top, when the main formation splits into 2 sections, while the solo breaks off on his own.
La display line, Mario.
Perfect 4-point roll. A slow roll is not an easy manoeuvre. You won't see a better one than that. The solo pilot is Major Ivo Nutarelli. Some people might say he's aptly named as he does his crazy flying. He really is stirring the pudding as he makes full use of all his flying controls very close to the ground. Flying so close they might be glued together. Ivo Nutarelli going into a series of vertical flick rolls and falling out of the top of it into a spin. This is a most unusual manoeuvre for a jet to perform so close to the ground. That's beautiful, the three colours of the Italian national flag. What an innovative and imaginative display, the Frecce Tricolori.
Yes, they're superb, but one of my lasting memories of this show is the sheer power and charisma of the Lightning.
The highlights for me were all the aerobatic teams, but especially the Red Arrows, and our thanks to Richard Thomas for that amazingly cool commentary while leading the formation.
So, from Holiday Air 87, from John